Hello and welcome to the Ponderings of Pete. I'm Pete Wagger and I'm going to do the Booktube Newbie Tag today because, well, I figured I'd wait a few videos, which I've posted a few videos, so now I'm going to put myself out there on the internet by saying, hi, this is me. So, hi, this is me. Question 1. Why did I start this channel? Obviously for the fame. Why else would you start a YouTube channel? For the fame, the acclaim, the money. No, I started a YouTube channel because I love books. Specifically, I started a Booktube channel because I love books. There's a few different reasons, including the fact that I love books and I want to talk about books. But those are the two main ones. Do I want to make money? Yes, I do. This is a diversification of my income. I want to have a little bit more than just one source of income. And, you know, I want to buy a house in the next 2 or 3 years. So this is part of the, let's go for it. So what are some unique and fun, interesting things that I can bring the book to? I really don't know. I mean, I do. I hope my sense of humor is unique. I hope my perspective is unique, because that's actually one of the things that I didn't mention in the first question was, you know, I want to develop my perspective more by reading. So I want to develop my critical thinking skills about reading more, because eventually I would like to write. And I think reading for me is inherently part of writing in determining, you know, what type of writing style do I want to eventually write with, and that line of thought. I also like knowing a lot about things. I like, you know, I like fun facts. I like trying to find cool things about these books, about what was happening when they were written, why were they written a certain way. I do this more with Brandon Sanderson books because I just know a lot about Brandon Sanderson, like specifically the Cosmere, because I'm very active in browsing different websites to discuss Brandon Sanderson and all the Cosmere and stuff like that. What am I excited for this channel? I am excited for the community. I've already, you know, delved into that community, which is why I kind of waited to do the Booktube Newbie Tag, because I didn't want to just like throw myself out there that much. I actually waited to start a Booktube until after I had sort of gotten into the community a little bit, and then I started it. But the community is great, and that's really the main thing that I was excited for. That and just, yeah, discussions, talking back and forth with people about our favorite books, learning, getting new books. I mean, since I've started Booktube, my to be read, my TBR list has grown exponentially. I'm never going to keep up with it. I can only try. Why do I love reading? Interesting question. I'll give it some thought. I've been reading since I was like small, really small. Not like in my mother's womb, because I'm not that superhuman, and I don't think they've actually invented books that can be read in the womb, much less would normal babies be able to read books in the womb because their eyes don't work. There's no light in there. Anyways, side tangent. Audiobooks maybe, but that wasn't me. I was reading since I like 4 or 5, I think, was when my brother and I started reading. Like my brother's older than me, but we each started reading pretty early. From what I remember, what I've been told by my mother, I've kind of just grown up with reading. Like so I was homeschooled all the way through high school. And when we grew up, one of the first places we lived for the first 8 or 10 years, for the first 12 years of my life, the 2 places we lived were close to a library. So we went to the library every week. And, you know, my brother and I were the type of kids that would, you know, come up with this stack of like 20 some books, and my mom would just be like, no, you can't take all those home. You're not going to read those in a week. And we'd cut it down to like 5 or 10. We'd still go home with a ton of books. And we read them all. So my brother and I read voraciously. I read all the Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew at the time of when I was a child. I think they were maybe close to 100 for both of them. So I remember the old canvas covers, I think it is, versus like the newer covers are all plastic and look really sleek and modern. No, I read them out of the old ones because of the library. So yeah, I just love to read because I enjoy, you know, finding new worlds. It's not necessarily the escape for me. I understand the escape, but I like having that world inside my own head. I like being in my own head, if that makes any sense. I like the complexities of worlds. I like figuring things out. I was a big mystery kid when I was younger, specifically Agatha Christie, How Do Boys Miss Drew, yada yada. My grandmother got me into Agatha Christie, actually, and I love her for it. And yeah, that progressed into fantasy, and that love of mysteries kind of helps me appreciate fantasy in a unique way. So what challenges do I think I'm going to face when I'm starting Booktube? I think first of all, editing. Editing is tough. I have a giant Rhythm of War reaction vlog staring at me right now, and just the individual edits for that are kind of crazy because I'm adding page numbers and stuff. Yeah, I can try, like I really want to make these look good, so I have to take everything in chunks in order not to overwhelm myself. Like my rule right now is like do one thing at a time. So every video I try to improve one thing, which has worked out pretty well so far. Other challenges, talk less, say more. That's probably one of the big challenges that I have. As you can probably already tell, my mind will just go off on tangents that make sense to a certain person, to me especially, but I have to make sure to stay on target, because when I get to talking about Sanderson especially, there's so many tangents. Like if you see my my Dawn Shard spoiler review, I go off on tangent after tangent because I just start thinking about something and I start, and that's just how I think. You need to learn to stay on target, which isn't that hard. It's more about creating structure for myself, because if I can create structure for myself, I'm good. If I don't create structure, I'm gonna go off on tangents. Just managing myself. Where do you read? So where do I read? That's an excellent question. Everywhere. I read on my bed, I read in this comfy chair, I read when I'm eating, which is a particularly dangerous endeavor sometimes. Sometimes I'll be in a lobby waiting for my friends to log on for like Warzone or something, and I'll just sit there and read while I'm waiting for them to log on. Or we'll be in between matches and I'll just crack open a book and start reading. That happens sometimes. Don't read in cars anymore because usually I'm driving. Yeah, I kind of just read wherever. I'll read when I'm waiting for food. Sometimes I'll take I have a Italian place where a local Italian place where I'll go take a book with me and read for 10 or 15 minutes while they're making my food. And the owner and I have a nice repartee about, he's like, "What's that? You bring some napkins with you?" It's really funny. So when did I start to read? And I think I've seen other people do, like, when did you start to read and what got you into reading for this question? I think I already kind of talked about when I started reading, which was really little. What I started reading, Boxcar Children was a big one for me when I was younger. As I said, Hardy Boys, Nancy Drew. What got me into fantasy specifically, I would say a combination of Chronicles of Narnia, Tolkien, obviously, and Paolini. Chronicles of Narnia was the first mainline fantasy book that I got, I would say, which opened up my eyes to that. Tolkien, like The Hobbit, I read that at a pretty young age. I think I read Lord of the Rings at like 12 or 13. And then Paolini was the first person that really got me into reading books as they came out and actually like theorizing about books. So I started reading Paolini's Inheritance trilogy cycle. I think it was right after the second book came out. My brother and I started reading it, and of course, at that point in time, my mom read it before us because she wanted to make sure it was okay because it was a brand new book. There weren't that many reviews out, so she filtered out what we read and stuff, which is not a bad thing, especially when we were young. She wanted to make sure we weren't going off and grabbing random books that had... My mom read it, my brother read it, I read it, and you know, my brother and I really loved it. We loved the first two books, so we spent the next like 4 or 5 years while the next two books came out. Maybe it was shorter than that because, you know, relative spans of time depending on memory. But while we waited for those books to come out, I annotated the books, theorized about what's going to happen in the next book, how it was going to end, what the different, what Aragon's prophecy meant. So Inheritance Cycle was like kind of the precursor to Sanderson for me in the end. I can definitely attribute my love of Sanderson and my love of, oh my gosh, what's going to happen in theorizing back to my experience with Paolini. So that's kind of what got me full on into the fantasy genre at the very least. My brother was a bigger sci-fi fan than me. I'm getting more and more into sci-fi. I have a decent background in sci-fi, but I have a heavier background in fantasy in my reading. So what type of books do I read? I kind of started getting into this previously, mostly fantasy and sci-fi, more fantasy than sci-fi. I'm trying to get more into some classics. For instance, I have Crime and Punishment and a few Jane Austens sitting on my shelf right now that I recently bought that I want to get into. I read Emma a couple months ago and I really liked it. So I want to get into more Jane Austen. I want to get into, Dostoevsky. I can't pronounce things worth a crap. Is there anything else? Isaac Asimov, I mean, you could call, depending on who you would call, if that's a classic or not. That's classic sci-fi. Ray Bradbury is another book author that's not traditionally sci-fi or fantasy. You could call him that. I mean, you can call him dystopian horror, I would think. Something along those lines, but he's fun. And then I'm also trying just to expand constantly what I'm reading some nonfiction. Right now, my expansion book, of course, if you've seen any of my TBRs or anything, is Infinite Jest. I'm slowly making my way through this because it's so different. I would just call it literary fiction at this point, probably, but it was technically classified sci-fi. After that, I'm actually gonna read the Federalist Papers and the Anti-Federalist Papers as my expansionary books, because that's just something I read for a camp class thing ages ago, and I read some of them, but I really would like to, expand my horizons by, reading them and developing political theory in my own mind based on the Federalist Papers and Anti-Federalist Papers as I go along. So it's, I have a few philosophy books that I'm trying to expand my mind with, as well as theology books that I read. Yeah, I got a lot of stuff that I do read. Not the biggest fan of self-help books. Horror, I read some. I mean, I have some H.P. Lovecraft. I might get into King eventually, I'm not sure. I'm not the biggest fan of horror. I occasionally dabble in historical fiction, occasionally. Definitely a big mystery guy. I love my Agatha Christie. I'm probably gonna read some Agatha Christie on this channel at some point. So, a lot. I read a lot. It's I don't know if this is something, it's easier to say what I don't like, but that's that. I hope you all enjoyed that. If you want to know more about me, keep watching my other videos. I'm sure I'll drop things here and there. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a like. Go ahead and subscribe if you want to see more content, because that's what I'll be putting out, because what else do you put out on YouTube but content? Go ahead and hit that bell if you want to be notified whenever I post a video. And yeah, have a great night.